Hello, welcome to Lord Havoc's Marvel Champions Custom Content Extravaganza. I have another creator spotlight for you. This is the final spotlight for season one, and whenever the final episode of a season, it's always like the special one, right? It's like it's the finale to the storyline, and everybody gets excited, and people get married or people die, or like it sets up the DC season and all that sort of stuff, right? So for the only person special enough to be the final episode of season one or the first episode of another season is my good friend, my confidant, but my teacher, my sensei, ES himself. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. That was my toned down version of my intro.
That was good. That was good. You're setting a high bar of marriages and deaths in the middle of an interview, so we'll see how it
Well,
goes.
hopefully there's none of those in the middle of this episode. We'll see how it goes. Yes, I just right off the. I just want to get this out of the way right off the bat. What you have done for the community and continue to do so for the community and for me personally is amazing to me. You've been mentioned in pretty much every spotlight so far, and it is a running gag that you're mentioned in every episode of my stream. Because it's the contribution that you have made and the help that you give to people and your creativity with your own creations is just amazing. And I just right off the bat, I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, I don't really know what to say because I don't think I do any more than a lot of the other people on the server do anyway. I think it's just a good group of people, and when you get help from people, you should pay it forward. So, I think my stuff I've made is just a benefit of all the other people's hard work, making me a better creator than I was, and so if I can help them, I'm obliged to help.
Awesome. It's that I think it's what it is. I think is that pay it forward attitude that you've got because you are more often than not the first person that reaches out when a new person shows up in the Discord and like you're always there to help with advice or what inspiration. I guess that's what it is for you. As one of the questions that I usually ask in these spotlights is, are there any creators that sort of inspire you? So if this was me doing this, it would be you number one off the bat, and the fact that we are actually now in real life friends because of it, it blows my mind. So just thank you for doing this. Thank you for being who you are, and I will for the rest of the spotlight now. I'll try to be less fanboyish. Oh, we'll see how we go.
Alright, sounds like a plan.
It was starting to sound a bit sad there. I thought I was going to burst into tears. I was like, I've got to calm down.
Yeah, don't do that.
That would be bad. So, all right, let's do it. Let's get into it. Like I said, and I'm not mucking around. You can go back and listen to them. You're mentioned in pretty much every episode. So, let's touch on sort of the reasons for that. Now, for the TTS mod that I've used, you actually got two. You've got your own personal one, and you've got the DC mod. So. We've gone with the DC one because it looks cool. Having the DC logo like right there in the middle there, that looks sweet. That's a cool visual. But this is part of the reason for what we're talking about. So even though Odysseus revealed that the server was originally started as a DC server or something, was it? That blows my mind. But that's why the logo is actually Booster Gold, which is awesome because Booster Gold is awesome. Is very cool. But you and other creators decided to make a specific DC tangent mod for the community, and its popularity is off the charts. It's amazing, and the amount of work that's gone into this is awesome. It's
So let me be very clear. It really started out as a very self-serving thing to
okay.
begin with. Like this was not you know, it was a all right. Let me say all right, maybe 50% self-serving. So 50% self-serving, 50% whatever. But I love DC Comics, and until very recently, there has not been a single DC game that I've enjoyed. Like they're always terrible. Like I can't stand the DC deck building game. Like it's just not fun. At
No,
least for me, it's not
it's
fun.
not.
Um, like it wasn't. There was no niche of a game for. I don't know why they can't get their act together. Don't ask me. But you know, and so that my love for superheroes is really DC slanted more than Marvel. Even though I read Marvel comics growing up, and I was like, why don't I start making DC stuff? But the hard part of making content is you need feedback. Like if you don't get feedback, then you just don't know. And one of the I'd say major criticisms that I ran up against, and I think it's a very fair one, which is every game is about immersion. Like you want to play a game and immerse yourself in it, right? I mean, that's why we play superhero games because we're basically like pretending to be superheroes, and
Yes,
it's kind of like the imagination in your head, right?
right.
And so, me personally, I didn't care because I like crossover stuff,. But there were a large number of people said, "Well, I will never play a DC character against Marvel stuff because it's just not thematic, right?"
Yeah.
And originally I was like, that's garbage. There's crossovers all the time. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, that's not really fair, right?
Yeah.
People enjoy what they enjoy.
Right.
And so it actually started out very small with, well, let's start just redoing some of the aspect cards, right? Because then it's the heroes and the aspect cards, so at least the decks look similar. And then
Hmm.
like, but now they got to go fight something. So now let's find like the most popular villain. So then at least like people who are willing, and there's a number of people that are just amazing at playtesting would feel would have more fun playtesting.
Mm.
Not only my creations, but creations of other people that make DC content. And I mean that's I think one of the really cool parts about this community is that people can be passionate about whatever IP they want, and they can make whatever they want, which is not in every kind of custom community out there. And so what started as like 50% self-serving and 50% for the community became, what you see here, which is an immersive experience where people can play the custom stuff or the real stuff in tandem, and then the people that actually create DC content have a higher chance of actually getting their stuff played.
Mm. Okay. And the table, was the table your idea and other people helped you do it, or is it always a group effort?
Um, so I don't remember the beginning. I think it was originally just let's do a little bit and see where it goes. And then at some point, Hitch, I mean, I can't thank Hitch enough for helping me through this. Is basically like, yeah, let me show you how to do some stuff and let me show you how to code some stuff and do a few things. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Right.
As far as making the table goes. And then, I've gotten a lot of help from many people. I'd say the biggest one was definitely Beretta. Beretta and Stranger Danger, especially in the beginning, helped me with so many of the reskins because, you know, except for the most recent set, we have probably reskinned every aspect card and every encounter card that they've made.
Mm. The amount of reskin work alone is unbelievable. I can't, it's unbelievable. It's the only word I can use. It's You've got the aspect cards themselves. I'm gonna go check. I'm gonna do the left hand side one, please. Um, there's all the aspects cards. And you've also got the Determination, Quintastic, and Speed Force in here. But there's all the official ones. They've all been redone, like you said, up until just the very very recent ones.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, and it's just and the actual scenarios here. Like this is the official content here. There's a rule for the DC mod that I really love. I don't know if it's a rule for specifically to the Discord itself, but the DC mod rule is that um, you don't really want to alter existing content, so you don't mess around with what FFFG is actually done, so that you're not sort of stomping on their toes. But reskinning is okay, and fully custom versions of heroes and stuff like that is okay as well. Did you come up with that rule?
Yeah, so, I it's hard to say where things like fair use, kind of fall.
Yeah.
Um, And so I figured, well, if we never touch the heroes, like the official heroes, right?
Yeah.
Then they really can't use our stuff to play Marvel champions that just happens to be DC, right?
Yeah.
And the other side of that was because most people love making heroes. And so by basically saying there will not be any reskin Marvel heroes meant if you were going to play DC stuff, you had to play somebody's custom. And then it allowed them a chance to get feedback and stuff like that and actually explore what people were doing.
Yeah.
So it was partly to kind of like say, hey, FFG, we're kind of respecting you because we want people to buy your stuff and, to keep this whole, keep this engine moving, right?
Mm.
The other side is to ensure that the people who are making the heroes actually get their heroes played.
Yeah. Because it's when playtesting, it's favored that you use, if you're using a custom hero, you use a official scenario and vice versa, right?
Mhm.
So there's for that reason alone, just for testing alone, if you as the having the reskin scenarios is amazing because you are actually testing against official content, right? But it looks DC, and if that's more your thing. I'm just going to put it out there right now. Disclaimer: DC's. I'm a Marvel zombie all the way, but I still love DC. Don't kill me, yes. I still love
Oh
DC,
no.
but having that sort of immersion is just awesome. I sort of whenever I'm streaming DC content, I always try to, unless I forget that notorious one time where I forgot and you were like, "What the hell's this?" Um, you were not pleased, but it's because I had like a DC hero, but I have Marvel aspect cards. It was weird. Anyway, so I always try for the immersion to have like the reskin version and stuff, and the amount of work is just, dude, it's just the amount of work. Sinister. Let's just look at Sinister. It's just um, it's just amazing. So, in terms of the reskinning sort of, I mean, it's still creation, right? Because you have to get the official content, and then you have to have the idea for why them. Like, so why the sinister agenda box is the Mutant Genesis reskin, right? Why the lanterns?
Hmm.
That sort of stuff. Where do you come up with the ideas for that? Why did you choose those specific scenarios to go with those specific sort of storylines?
So a lot of it comes from talking to people that like DC stuff. I mean, that's kind of where some of this starts. And then it's really just trying to marry what is the scenario trying to do with a person that we could hopefully find enough artwork for. Because I will say the one kind of difference between Marvel and DC is DC has such large tentpole characters that if you're not in the core, we'll say 7 characters,
Mm.
it actually becomes much harder to find artwork for people very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
Um, and so sometimes it's just a struggle of saying, is this person one fitting this scenario, and two, is there a snowball's chance in hell we'll have enough good art to actually make the scenario work?
right.
Um, like so for example, when the mutant line started and we had to make a billion X-Men,
Yeah,
it was which team out there besides actually this is the other problem, which is almost everybody's a Justice Leaguer or you have a really small other team, right?
mm.
And so filling out that roster was not knowing there'd be 3 waves of it was going to be an easy, then it snowballed into a much more difficult task.
Right.
But then it's like, well, if you go with the emotional spectrum of the lanterns, then you have a billion lanterns, then it kind of works, and then you just want the whole thing to kind of work together. And so that's why that one became lantern focused, and the subsequent ones lantern focused as well.
Right, and it sort of ties into what you've done with the traits, right? Because you had to translate the
Yeah.
official traits into DC's theme traits, right? So the Justice League,
Yep.
the Avengers become the Justice League, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, right? Were any of those hard? Or do they all just sort of make sense, right? The Avengers being the Justice League makes sense, right? But what about stuff like the Titans, or the Inhumans becoming New Genesis and stuff like that? How'd you come up with those ones?
So that one was more of a, I'd say more of a convenience than anything. It was who do we have custom heroes for that belong to certain teams, and will this kind of thing fit with that team?
Cool.
Um, So like you said, Avengers and Justice League, that's a no-brainer, and
Yeah,
that's easy, right? But then we had Guardians,
yeah,
and it was, well, who do we have next? And we had just a critical mass of Gotham people, and so then we went with the Bat Family because obviously you know, they should get representation. So it was kind of it was more, can we somehow co-opt whatever the theme is of that trait, and then shoehorn it into a team, custom heroes that need a team, basically.
and they sort of match the personalities too, which is why I think they're so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the Web Warriors become the Titans. They're sort of like the singular heroes that sort of band together every now and again, and their personalities sort of match the young, hipper, if I can say the word. I've just aged myself. The so the young sort of more happy go lucky, street level type sort of stuff. I mean, it just fits the Titans so perfectly. And some of the rest of them are no brainers as well, right? Like Gamma matches the Kryptons and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I think some of them are so so well done, and is it just happy? I was wondering, is it a happy coincidence or was there actual real thought
Yes.
and planning to that? Wow, that's awesome.
I think it was more just a very happy accident that, I'll claim, inadvertent genius for, but if I'm being bluntly honest, it was just a happy accident.
I'm sure there was subconsciously some sort of genius behind it. So
I don't know.
so the box we are missing is Age of Apocalypse, right? So
Yeah.
what's the skin for that going to be once it gets done?
So if somebody does it, because I don't know if I'll have the time to do it, it'll probably be Black Lanterns, because that
Oh
kind of fits
yes,
and there's enough to kind of play around with there.
very cool.
Um, but just finding the time, I'm a new father and everything, and so finding the time to even make my own stuff is a little sketchy. But then to say, well, let me go reskin something, um, you know, it's something I'd rather not do at the moment, even
Yeah,
though it is kind of relaxing. Like I'll be honest, reskinning aspect cards is very relaxing, just because you don't have to like go, oh, I need 8 different pieces of art for this one person. Let me go find them to shoehorn in these things. It's a much
yeah.
easier task.
So after the stress of finding the art, once you actually make them, it's a lot less stressful. Um,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. All right, so we've also got some custom villains as well, which I think is awesome. Which is, of course, I mean, it must have. There's some absolute bangers in here, man. There's some classics in here. Um, Everybody's sort of like the community's like contributed to it and stuff. But I want to talk about some of your sort of stuff. What would be your favorite? This is going to be hard for you, but what would be your favorite hero and favorite scenarios that you've made?
So my idea of making scenarios is I try to find ways of making making you play the game differently. So, another probably thing that only a couple people on the server probably know is I actually don't play this game very much. I think I've maybe played Marvel Champions 30 or 40 times in total, if that.
Wow.
And it's including like against myself and all the rest of that stuff. I just don't, you know,
Mm.
it's a social game, and so since I don't have a lot of people around me that play, I don't have the opportunity to actually play it very much. So I have a very, I guess, different look on how this stuff actually plays, and maybe that helps.
Wow.
But watching your videos actually helps a lot because I can see how people play, which then lets me get some insight into, well, how can I make this more challenging without just like adding surge to every card, or
Yeah.
how can I do something that kind of, I don't want to say breaks, but at least makes you think about how you approach deck building or doing what you normally do in the game. And so if I had to like pick a scenario that I think does that well without being too cumbersome, it'd be Gorilla Grodd.
Awesome.
Um, as in most Champions games, if you're a Justice player, your job is to basically turn the thwart down to zero as much as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
Or you basically let the threat go and you just try to burn through the villain as fast as you can. And so what I did with Grodd is I made his threat on his main scheme another kind of pain point that you had to worry about. And so if you brought the threat down too little, he'd start punching your face in. If you started letting the threat go, then he's going to scheme out much faster. And so you really had to find a way of managing that in his scenario, which I think is just enough of a wrinkle to make him a more interesting scenario overall.
Yep, I agree. The love and respect for the Gorilla Grodd scenario is well known in the community, and it's a fascinating idea. The whole, I mean, he's a fascinating character. I mean, he's a talking gorilla who has psionic powers. It's just, and so you're really tied into that the whole brute using the existing brute and psionic stuff there for sure. Cool, awesome. So, um, when when designing Grunt, like, so what is your sort of like your design process? Like, so you said that you wanted to have sort of like sort of alter the game in sort of like an interesting sort of way and sort of stuff. Do you write everything down and sort of work out mechanically how it's going to work, or you make the stuff and sort of work it out that way? And since you don't play often yourself, what sort of play testing do you get done?
So I'll answer the last one first, which is I hope and pray that someone else play tests it for me. Um,
Okay.
that's basically the truth. So, I mean, I will say with 100% certainty that the stuff I make would be just hot garbage if it wasn't for like you and Captain Scorp and Gold and Hainsey and McBobber
Mm.
and Beretta and Super TNT and like I mean I can't even and I know I'm missing people
Mm.
who have play tested the nightmare hellscapes that my stuff starts out as, help me refine it to the really good stuff that it is, that I at least I hope that it is at the end of the day.
I make it a point that every time you release a new scenario, I play test it pretty much immediately. And some of them have been brutal. Like
Yeah.
the Joker scenario. Joker, yeah, I want to talk about Joker. Let's recall Grodd and put Joker out because um, this scenario just blows my mind. It's just how cool it is. It's very modular. So it's very much a you won't get the same game twice sort of thing based on how you like set it up, right? So you gotta like you choose a certain amount of cards from the modules and put them in and stuff like it's all here in the thing.
Well, that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
So it's actually different now.
Oh,
So it's different in two dimensions. So one
okay.
was Gold. I can't remember who Gold played test with, but whoever Gold played test with, the feedback I got was this is a quintessential Joker scenario, but I will never ever play it again because it's way too frustrating. But that's how the Joker scenario should be, right?
Right.
And I appreciate that, but I think every creator wants their stuff not to just be played once and go, okay, that's it, I'll never do that again, right? You don't want to have like a scenario that's like Ronin, where it's like, yep, I did it, and I want to move on.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I think this is something like Odie brought up because I have been watching your creator series,
Cool.
and and I respect the hell out of them because I think it's actually helping a lot of people understand what other people do, and I think it'll just make the whole process a lot better to be honest.
Right.
But Odie's design philosophy of you basically find one lane and you stick with that one lane. Um, is something that I've been trying to do, but then every now and then I kind of creep back into old bad habits.
Hmm.
And so like the Joker scenario had so many moving pieces that it just was not fun. It was hard to set up. There's all these like contingencies that had to get put in to make it work right, and sometimes it wouldn't even work right. And so, what if I had to say there's something that maybe makes me a good creator compared to other people is I have no problem like destroying the stuff I make, all the way down to the studs and rebuilding it from scratch over and over and over again, based upon the feedback I get. Like I know you and I have talked a lot, about different creations, and you have that one card that you really like, or you have this one idea that you really like. That's just like how we are as
Hmm.
creators.
Hmm.
Um, I have no problem blowing it up and starting all over again because that's just the nature of the job that I have, and I think I just carry it over to the stuff that I make.
Right.
Um, and so with the Joker, I knew the one element that I wanted to keep, and then it was, can I get rid of everything else and still keep it very Jokery and a more enjoyable pace? And I will say I actually play tested the new version of the Joker, so I actually tried him. I think he functions much better. He's still frustrating, which is fine, but I don't think he's the negative player experience frustrating anymore. I think it's just more of a this is the Joker and how it should be frustrating.
Okay, cool. All right, this is with a happy accident. Actually, this we did not plan this in advance, folks. I didn't know that he'd redesigned it. I did know that you were going to go back and revisit some stuff, like you're revisiting Zod,
Yeah.
and Catwoman exists because you took a mechanic from one of your other creations and sort of basically gave it to her and set it as
Yep.
her, like singular type thing. That's the whole stealing cards business, which I think you took from Zod, right? Yeah,
Yep.
the negative zone, and then sort of put it from there. So, but I didn't know that you'd actually taken away the setup stuff. So, I've read it here while you're talking, and it's in yeah. So you said you randomly select two encounter sets instead of like certain amount of numbers and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, cool, right. But I do see that it still has party favor. One of the greatest
Oh yeah.
cards, one of the greatest custom cards ever. My God, I hate this card so much, but it's awesome because it is the Joker, right? It's just that's great, love it. And does it still have? Oh, here we go. Does it still have the card where you just immediately lose? Where's that?
Yeah.
Where is it? Killing Joke?
It's
No.
it's this one. Oops. Oh no. It's why is it doing this?
I don't know. It's just gone a bit
I
weird.
can't separate cards for some reason. Let me go find it.
Okay.
Um, I don't have permission to.
I'll recall.
Yeah,
I'll
it's-
recall it. I'll do it again. Joker, and then
It's not gonna work because we already moved all the cards out.
Uh,
Anyway, it's called That's Entertainment.
that's
Um,
entertainment. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So those are still there.
They're still there?
But so two reasons why I went to this. One is when you randomly drew cards from before, then sometimes you get groupings of cards that didn't gel well together. But if you make them a modular, then by default they will gel well together, right?
Right.
And so, yes, you don't have the complete and utter randomness in big quotes like before, but you still get a flavor of it now. Like that's the idea.
Okay. Cool. And it does still instantly kill you.
An expert mode.
In expert mode, it just instantly kills you.
Yeah.
What was it called? That's
If you
entertainment.
if you yeah, it's like you randomly select a card that you own and Joker nukes it, and since your identity is technically a card that you own, he can potentially nuke it.
And it uses your clash mechanic. So that was
Yeah.
entirely you, yeah. So, um,
Yep.
can
Well, it's Magic the Gathering that's been imported over to um, Marvel Champions.
okay. I created that's entertainment card while you were talking because I just had to show it because it's great. So not only do you instantly die, he actually laughs at you when he does it. we play tested this card. Um, Josh's reaction was hilarious. It's like, what? He's laughing at me. Why is he laughing? It was just love it. I love that sort of stuff. That's the sort of thing. That's what makes memorable games when you manage to actually be able to do that sort of stuff. I think that's great. It's very cool. Yes, I'm talking about the clash mechanic a bit. It's very cool.
So my background, like as far as my gaming background goes, like I was a big Dungeons and Dragons person, and I was a big competitive war gamer for like a long time. And so I know, not know, but like you know, like I'm used to more randomness than just what card am I going to draw, right? And so, in Marvel Champions, really, there's only kind of two sources of randomness. One is what cards do you draw, and then the other one is when boosts happen, right? Because then you get like a little bit of modification of the attack and scheming there. And so I was like, is there another way that could enforce randomness in a creative way to make scenarios more interesting? And more importantly, what I like to do with the stuff I make is make deck building more important. Not just because you're trying to get like synergies inside the deck, but you're also trying to build a deck or maybe even tweak your deck towards the scenario, like the scenario requiring you to think differently about how you put cards in.
Yes.
So Clash is just you fighting against the boost icons deck to either have benefits for you or more negative consequences. So it's just like it's like a test of wills between you and the villain,
Yeah,
which otherwise you really don't get much in the game because how do you defeat the villain? We just punch him in the face, right?
yeah.
And you just try to punch him in the face harder. You thwart down side schemes. This is just another way that you can do some like risk and rewardy type stuff in the game. At least that's what I was going for.
I did not know that Clash came from that background. I always pictured it as being when sometimes when you play fighting video games with fighters, and every now and again you'll have the after you're doing like the punches and kicks, or have the thing where they have like what can only be described as a clash, right? Like their swords lock, and
Mhm.
you got to press the
Yeah.
buttons furiously to sort of like break apart and get in a riposte or something like that sort of stuff. That's where I thought that was kind. That's why I always that's how I always picture it. But I like your description far better, obviously, because it's yours. But that's cool, awesome. Yeah, Clash is fascinating because of just how just how it can swing you. It's awesome. I love it. It's great. Um,
Well, but you can also deck build for it,
Deck
right?
build
So that's the
for it.
nice part is you
Yeah,
can build for it, but then you're now sacrificing the fact that you can't play as many cards because you want to have high value cards to win the clashes, right?
yeah.
And so my and that's kind of like the way I like to think about scenarios is can I make you think about deck building differently than just let me put in the cards that will help me do my job better, but are there considerations I now need to make that will make scenario easier or more difficult because the scenario, you know, treats me different. So, like for example, like in Two Face, he starts getting meaner the larger the board state you have,
Yeah.
um, and that was intentional because in the scant few games I've played, the way to win is generally you build a huge board state out, right? And so at that point, it's inevitable that you're going to win. But he actually becomes more punishing on some of his cards as you build your board state out, right? And
Mm,
so at that point, you don't have the luxury of doing it anymore,
that's
or
um.
you making a judicious choice to do it or not.
Yeah, exactly right. It opens up so many different possibilities because it's like deck building is an important part of this game, but um, quite often, more often than not, your people just sort of stick to their tried and true, right? So this, and they sort of swap the heroes out, but use like the same similar sort of deck. I'm definitely guilty of that. You've got your like my pre-built justice deck, and I just sort of just bring that to whenever I need like a justice type thing. And I recently learned how disastrous this decision that was. It's horrible, horrible stuff. But whereas you actually you basically force them to sort of think outside the box a bit. Did you ever play the Lord of the Rings LCG?
No.
That's the very fundamental aspect that you have to learn whenever you play that game is you can't just
Okay.
have the same deck every single time. You need to actually build for it and think about what it is that you're doing and who you're bringing in and all that sort of stuff. It's great. Um, there's a lot of videos of people trying to play just the same deck over just throughout the all the quests and stuff, and it inevitably ends in tears. The Two Face. I'm glad you brought Two Face up. Two Face is part of the of McBobber's acclaimed Gotham's Reckoning campaign. Did he approach you to get Two Face into it, or is it like a collaborative effort? How did that actually? What's the story of how that came about?
So McBobber's awesome for basically biting the bullet and making the first DC campaign, and did just an exceptional job. Like I played it vicariously watching your videos, like through the campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to see it functioned. I think even the way that he envisioned it, and so it was so cool. Um, and so I think just naturally because McBobber is a I don't know if he's a huge fan of DC, but I know he likes DC a lot.
Mm.
Um, Started kind of just asking around, different people, um, what would you be willing to contribute? And I was like, whatever you want, of course. Um, and so we he and I also talked about the kind of the campaign reward system. Like he had the entire branching, kind of like Arkham horror style thing, which I think just added
Yeah.
such a great level like
Awesome.
to it, more so than what FFG makes.
Mm.
But I think he and I are the ones that discussed the kind of campaign rewards to make them allies, and the allies kind of upgrade throughout rather than stuff you buy, um, which I think is a creative solution. Um,
Awesome.
to the campaign reward system.
So the allies is your idea.
I think it was our.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was mine. I think it was more we were just bantering about things, about
Right.
like what to do.
The ally system. Yeah, it was.
I came up with some of the. I can say that I came up with Jaro as being one of them
Ah,
because
cool.
I love.
Awesome. Jarry's one of my favorites. He's awesome. Cool. It's
Um,
the ally system is awesome. But Bob and when we had our spotlight, I was talking about how when I ran through the campaign and my ally died, and I got really upset because I was emotionally invested, and his reaction was good.
mhm.
I'm glad you got upset because that's basically that's the real sign that it's a success, right? It's just we were actually you're really involved and like you want to win and yeah, it was great. That's really the Gotham Reckoning campaign thing is awesome. So, and that I think that's basically the epitome of this like this table is creators coming together to sort of make the stuff that we love, which is awesome.
Yep.
Now we sort of we diverted a bit. The question originally was your favorite scenario and hero that you have made personally. So let's go over to the back to the hero sections. Actually, no. Before we do you prefer to make heroes or scenarios?
I used to prefer to make heroes, but now I like making scenarios more.
Cool.
Um,
Why is that?
Harder to make a good scenario. Like you got to think more, which I think is fun.
Mm,
I think the design space for scenarios is larger than I think what we give it credit for. Like, I mean, I think the singular greatest scenario I've ever seen is Nuggets Fin Fang Foom.
oh
Like,
yeah,
it's just so smart and so slick.
yeah,
Design hacker, his Mole Man scenario is so cool.
mm,
Um, and parts of his Doctor Doom scenario are just brilliantly thought out.
yeah,
Um, you know, I think I think there's a lot of design space for scenarios. I think they're just daunting because they're tough to balance to make fun, right? I think, heroes making them overtuned still is a fun player experience where you're like, oh, this person's way too good, but I still had a good time punching the villain in the face, right?
yep,
But I think people have less of a fun time if the villain continuously punches them in the face and then they never want to try it again, right?
yeah,
But they also don't want to steamroll them either.
yeah,
So I think the scenarios have a much finer line of what is acceptable and fun than heroes do.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot more need for scenarios. Because if you think about it, there's scenarios we always go back to try stuff out because they work just really well, like Claw,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Claw is a simple but just brilliant scenario that
yeah,
changes fundamentally with the modulars you pick, and I think that it's a testament to how well FFG did in making their stuff. So I just like making scenarios now more, to be honest.
yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. But with that being said, let's move to the heroes. So you've got like a wide range of heroes, and you're still doing it. I mean, you only just announced your Mr. Miracle, which is awesome. It's getting a lot of buzz because he looks great. Um, it's your design, your hero designs. I think are just spot on. They're just absolutely spot on. There's this different ways to play the game, but yet in simple, intuitive ways. None of I've mentioned it, pretty often. It's just I'm not a very good player, and so I sort of lean more towards heroes that are less complicated, simple and yet still fun type stuff. And your heroes are sort of like in the middle for me. They're fun and simplistic, but they have just fascinating little tweaks to them that actually sort of enhance certain parts of the game depending on which hero it is that encourage deck inventive deck building and things like that and really capture the essence of the character really well. That's yeah, I love that sort of stuff. Out of your heroes, which would be your favorite?
Um, so I think my favorite only because, well, okay, I can't. I take a step back. He's not the one that went through the most number of iterations. That was easily Superman. Like I just could not get him to work. And even after I got him to work, I still think Beretta's is so much better than mine, even though Beretta will argue that that's not the case. I think Beretta easily captured a much better version of Superman than I think I ever could have. It's just awesome. Like
Mm,
the the creativeness of Beretta is just awesome, and I think he does an exceptional job.
yes.
Super TNT finds really creative, kind of more nichey characters and does just a cool job with them as well. Um, you know, Someone that doesn't create as much anymore that I wish would create more is Hainsey.
Mm,
Like Hainsey's Bane is like one of the most clockworky heroes ever, and that's the style of stuff that he makes. McBobber I think leans more towards like the Odie school of making stuff. And then I think you actually are more on the design hackery side of let me make something just absolute batshit crazy and let's hope that it works, right? Like I think no, I'm serious. Like I think you take a lot of creative liberties to make really thematic characters that fit the power sets and the confines of Marvel Champions, which I think often makes them more complicated than I think you would like.
yeah,
Um,
that's usually it.
which is not a bad thing. It just means, I think one of the challenges of Marvel Champions that I've embraced, and I think Odie really capitalized on it, is you want to try to make the character fit the structure of the game, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, when I try to make stuff, and my first versions are never like this. My first versions are generally like just bat crap crazy, way too much text, it's doing way too much, and all the rest of that.
Right.
But you know, and then I think some people, like I think you and Design Hacker, I think Blue HG, Carmi especially, I think you all like to lean on the side of them being complicated for the sake of capturing theme
Mm,
up front, which is awesome, right? I think theme is one of the most important things in this game.
theme all the way.
I have moved away from that
Right.
because I was originally in that cat camp, and my original stuff that I made, because I made Marvel stuff to begin with before I made DC stuff, so leaden with too much stuff for theme that it just wasn't fun.
Right.
And so I've tried to backtrack to make things as themey as I can while still making them playable. And so it's a long way of saying like, who is my favorite character I made? It's John Constantine, because trying to capture someone whose entire purpose is being like, a bastard and like a con artist who does magic in a game where there is no like social deduction was like a challenge. And I love the character. He's one of my top favorite DC comic characters. Um, you know, he's my favorite.
Wow. That is not who I thought you were going to say. You have blown my mind. I mean, because I love I love your Constantine. The whole pact with the devil's element, really captures my favorite Constantine story, which is the one where he sells his soul to three separate
Mhm.
devils, and essentially is now immortal because of it. It's just amazing.
Yep.
Wow, that's cool. Well, I've got John out.
Yep.
Is that why you love him so much, because of how he really leans into his theme?
Yeah, like I tried to capture. So with him especially, one of the things in a co-op game is you you really don't screw your friends over, right? Like people don't like that.
Yeah.
Um, I personally don't have a problem with it as long as it's themey.
Yep.
But a lot of people are like, I don't want to. It's like why Star Lord is not nearly as popular as he should be in this game, because why he draws more encounter cards, which makes it harder for the other people on your team, right?
Mm.
Um, that is something I've seen in Marvel Champions where there's less of a taste preference for people willing to play heroes that may also somehow negatively impact the other people you're playing with. And I don't know if that's a function of the people playing the game or its theme or what have you, but that doesn't exist. And so Constantine has gone through two different major iterations before hitting this one. The first one was actually with player side schemes before player side schemes were even a thing. And if they popped off, then bad things would happen to the team. The next one was like almost like Mysterio, where he had a pack deck that he would get stuff, but then he'd throw cards of varying levels of badness into other players' decks because
Ooh.
you don't want to be a friend of Constantine.
Yep.
And then this last one is the one that I think got to the closest, which is where you basically take minions and turn them into nefarious, or not necessarily nefarious, supernaturally inclined beings and get stuff from them, but you still have to deal with the minion, right? So it could be you, it could be a teammate who's a protection player or something like that. So it basically just rides the line of, well, it's kind of harming the team, but it's enough that it's seen as okay.
How was the version where you put cards into other people's decks received?
Say that again, sorry?
How was the version where you put cards into other people's decks received?
Poorly. Very poorly. It was,
I can imagine.
it was very bad because nobody likes having another player basically screw them over. It was as close to like PvP as I think people get into this game, is how I would define it.
Wow. I don't know, man. Strangely, I find that actually quite fascinating. As long as you like set up front, this is the hero I'm playing, and this is what he does. I don't see why people couldn't lean into it. Like someone interested in a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I want to see. I actually want to see that version. But I do love this version. So the whole pact idea is amazing. I love it. It's how you manipulate the board for his own ends because that's what he does, right? Nobody wants to be friends with John Constantine because he's an
Yep.
asshole. And horrible things happen to the people around him. It's ridiculous. But yet he does have friends that because of his loyalty and willing to get things done and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he's a cool character. Great choice. All right, well then maybe we'll stumble upon it when I say who would be your second favorite. I'm just very surprised that this person has not been mentioned yet.
Well, I mean, I do have love for Batman. I mean, I'm not gonna
Yay!
lie, but you know, he is my favorite character in DC, but he's not my favorite character that I made. I think he's in the top 5, but
Right. Okay.
like I think other ones capture stuff better without as many steps as I need to get Batman right.
I respect that. I really
and
do. Yeah, that's interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I cut you off. I actually really respect that. It's because Batman is definitely your number one fan favorite creation. I think that's pretty easy to say. It's Batman is your Batman seems to be the gateway hero for people who are like new into the scene. It's like, oh, I want to try custom stuff, and it's like, oh, let's see if they've got if they've got a Batman. That's essentially it. Like, everybody comes in and wants to play Batman, right? And so they grab your Batman, and he's just awesome. I mean, he is. I wish Josh was here to say this. He is Batman. I can't do it. My throat's too bad. But I mean, he really does sort of epitomize what he does. Like he puts, like he's the whole thing about how Batman, beats all these people is because of prep, right? With enough prep, Batman can take anybody down, which is overused nowadays. There's no way Batman's taking down Darkseid. It's just not happening, but he does. Because of the prep cards, right? The deterrence cards that you then put into the encounter deck and then do stuff. Did you not call them prep cards because there's already a preparation word keyword?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So deterrence, and that makes perfect sense, right? Because that's what he's meant to do. He's meant to deter crime, not just always just punish crime. He wants to stop crime from happening at all, ever, right? Which of course is a never-ending battle that will never finish, right? So, yeah, Batman is just amazing, and just how he works. And I'm actually not even that big of a Batman fan. I'll be honest with you. I know that's blasphemy. I apologize to all DC listeners, but I just think he's overused. But your Batman, when played right. And I've been privileged to be in some games where he has been played properly, and he's just amazing. Just the mechanics, the synergy, and the tempo, which I think is a key part of making heroes. Good hero makers are ones that are able to keep to theme, which I love, which is always number one for me. But also just making sure that the tempo of the character's right. There's always something going on. You're not just sitting there doing nothing. it's just amazing work.
And a lot of that came through really great feedback from a variety of people on the server, because this is not, he started with the side deck, but he had so much kind of clockworky nonsense in his deck when I first made him, because I think he was like the third or fourth character I made. And so really it was like Captain Scorp, many long conversations walking around, because he would walk his dog and I'd walk my dog
Yeah,
at the same time as we would talk.
awesome.
Um, and I remember he like reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, I tried your Batman. Basically, like, what the hell is this?" Like, it's like, I don't know. What do you think it is, right? He's like, "This is not how this works. Like, what? Why are you doing this?" I was like, "Well, you can play this card and combo and this card and combo this thing." He's like, "Yeah, that's not this game. Like, what is the matter with you, right?"
Brilliant. That's I can
So
almost I
just
can
really
almost
great
hear
feedback.
Scorp's voice
Yeah.
saying those words.
You Between that and then he went to the old council approval system, and I got lots of great feedback there to make him better. And then even after all that was over, I revisited him one more time to kind of make some final tweaks on him. I think if there is a problem of my stuff is things are not always done when I say they're done, because I'll go back and I'll revisit them because I'm a perfectionist.
It's
So,
my love for you is well known, and I'm not afraid to say it. I love you and I love your work, but this will probably be the only even slightly negative thing I'm going to say in this spotlight is when do you decide to just let it go? It's like you go back and sort of tweak and tweak and tweak. And it's like when in your mind do you finally say, okay, this is done. This is complete.
it just happens. I don't know. Like, I wake up a morning and I'm like, oh, Batman's done. I'll never touch him. I don't know. I think it's just I hit a point where I look at the cards and I go, this is where I want it to be, and this is where I think it's going to work. No, like some of them it's much faster than others. Um, Part of the reason why I kind of redid a lot of stuff is because now with generative AI, I can make the art look better. And so once I started
Oh,
tinkering with the art, it's like, oh, well, let me go fix this card because I can make this card better now.
dangerous.
So I think a lot of the revamps to stuff I've done lately started with tinkering to make the cards look better. And then as I was making the cards look better, I realized, oh, I should really change this in this set because this will make the set work better. It's just, learning as you go.
And is it a better idea, or because new releases for like new official releases introduce new stuff? Like you were quite
Both.
excited when they released the concept of find and
Yeah.
tuck. So now they got the tuck
Yep.
thing, right? So you were like, I think you like posted it. You were like, "Thank you, FFG." And now you've gone back and,
Yeah.
and now they're appearing, which is cool.
Yeah, because I mean, like another just asset to the community that has helped so much is Viral, right?
Yes,
And Viral's vast encyclopedic knowledge of all things rules based.
it's just
One
amazing.
helps make the cards more professional, but then it also reins in creativity, and so to do certain things you need like 15 words, and so and the cards become over, like the mental overhead becomes too much, and so anytime the official people can come up with something that makes your
Yeah.
life easier, instead of saying, and now put this card underneath this card face up, it's like, oh, I can now write one word for it, then it kind of makes things easier.
Although a better word than tuck, surely.
Ah,
I
like, I'll
can't
use the
stand
word,
it.
I don't care.
I'm not a
It's
fan.
fine.
Veryl's amazing. I'm trying to get them on to have a chat with them a bit.
Yeah.
I think Veryl's secretly like an official FFG playtester or something. Like this, their knowledge is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I also love it how they say "I am summoned" whenever somebody asks them a question, which is great. I
They're
think it's
great.
cool.
They're good.
Yeah, an immense help. All right, well, I kind of hijacked your answer. I apologize. I wanted to get Batman on the screen, and I just know viewers would be waiting. I kind of did it
Oh,
for the viewers for Batman. So, if Constantine's your first one, who would be your second one?
Etrigan.
Yeah, that's who I thought was going. That's who I
Etrigan.
thought you were going to say was first. That's why I was like, I'm
Oh,
actually
okay.
so shocked that you didn't say Yeah, I thought Etrigan was the one. Actually, I'm going to clear some space. Sorry, sorry, Bats fans. Go on. I need to make some space for Etrigan. Yeah, I thought this was going to be your number one for sure because I know how much you would love this. I got him out. Let's do it. What is it about Etrigan that?
So
Boom.
I,
Oh,
I
boom.
I think one is I love his obligation to death. So one of the things that I've come to appreciate him, and maybe it's because I like scenarios more,
Hmm.
is focusing on the Nemesis set to really add kind of like flavor to the character, right?
Mm.
Um, and a lot of that starts with the obligation because you're more likely to see the obligation than the Nemesis set in the game, except for with Standard 3 now, right?
Mm.
Um, and so making an obligation kind of part of the story of the character is important to me when I do that. And so I really wanted to capture like the fact that Etrigan is only mildly in control of by Jason Blood, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why I liked his obligation because it's not ridiculously punishing, but it's enough to say, oh, it's not just flip to your alter ego and you know
Exhaust.
exhaust and you get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit more to it. So
Love it. Cool. And Etrigan stuff. I love that one of his nemesis is an evil cat.
oh
what's,
yeah, Claret and Teagle,
what's
like I love it.
what's that about?
So it gave me an opportunity to basically so Design Hacker has probably one of my favorite heroes out there, which is Cloak and Dagger,
Yeah.
which is two heroes in one basically.
Yep.
Um, and I wanted to do that in one person rather than two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's hard because there's not a lot of DC. There's not a lot of heroes, full stop, whose alter ego is as much of a hero as their hero side is, right? I mean, that's not how it works.
Mm.
But with Jason Blood, who's an accomplished magician and flaunts his magician-y, whatever, magic prowess around, often as much as he turns into Etrigan to then do Etrigan shenanigans.
Yep.
Um, gave me the opportunity to do that, and so this is like my version of a flippy hero where you're actually effective in both sides rather than just saying, well, I'm an AE, let me hope I have a support that lets me do something this turn and I'll exhaust to heal a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like you actually have a good reason to flip to his side to do things.
Spot on. That's why I love him. The fact that his alter
Yeah.
ego is just as and maybe even more powerful than Etrigan himself is just amazing to me. We've had long discussions about my hatred of AE and the fact that this didn't exist in this game at all. And I think I've worked out why it is because the very first game you play is Rhino, right? The very first scenario,
Mhm.
and he annihilates you if you actually make the mistake of going to AE, and so that combined with my theme element, which I just think the whole concept of AE just doesn't make any sense, right? No one's going to Spidey's not going to run away and become Peter Parker in the middle of a Rhino fight because he wants to go buy a donut or something. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But I've come along to it obviously, and then of course, like I said, the Rhino scenario when it's trying to teach you the game actually punishes you for doing the game. I've come a long way from there
Mhm.
in over the years. I've calmed down a bit, and now I sort of lean into it. I've even got some of my favorite heroes are custom heroes are ones that are effective in AE and stuff. And 100% number one on my list is the Jason Blood Etrigan set. It's he's I actually had when I was playtesting him, I had more fun in the Jason side than I did in the Etrigan side, and that just blew my mind. I was like, this is just amazing. Why did you decide to go the route of just having the one singular AE hero be two different people instead of the design hacker cloak and dagger? Because that was actually going to be. Glad you brought it up because that was actually going to be one of my questions. Is why did you do this version instead of the two have a separate Jason and a separate Etrigan decks?
It just seemed to work better. I mean, so it's a at the end of the day, Marvel Champions is a card game, right? And
Mm.
so you want to try to instill like physic. I mean, this is gonna sound really strange, but like what makes a card game enjoyable? When you turn cards, when you flip cards, and when you draw cards, right? I
Mm.
mean, it's tactile, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I figured rather than having two different heroes that you had to manage, it just seemed more like it just made more sense to have one card, one that you're flipping a lot because that's really what you're doing is you're going between the forms. And so that's why it just made sense to settle on one versus having two different people like piloting around.
Yeah, I've tried to rip this idea off myself. I just actually, I'll rephrase. You've inspired me. It probably sounds better. I wanted my Amanda Waller to be a similar sort of deal because Amanda Waller doesn't have
Mhm.
a superhero form. She is just is who she
Yeah.
is, right? She doesn't change. But you have to. But I'm constrained by the concept of the game, right? The IA hero type stuff. And it doesn't quite work as I sort of intended it, but sort of stuff. But I do. I'm fascinated by this idea, the fact that the AE can of course then just can be useful. So anybody who pulls it off has my utmost respect, and Etrigan
So I
does it.
think Bride of Beast, new Black Widow does it for sure.
Beretta Beast
Like
Black
I
Widow,
think
yeah.
if you,
I want to give her a
yeah,
go because I was reading up on
yeah.
that. He just did a post for her in the Discord, and I was just like, oh my god, that's awesome. So it's just,
And I think and I want to say Captain Scorp's Iron Lad might also have a good AE. Like you
yeah,
want to go to AE if I remember correctly. I could be completely wrong, but I want to say there was something about it that you wanted to do that with his set
cool.
too.
Well, I'll definitely have Black Widow on the stream at some point. I'm not a big Iron Lad
Yeah.
fan, so I might skip that one. But yeah, Black Widow is. I love Black Widow. She's awesome. Cool. All right. Is there any? I know you said like you're quite busy, and I get that. I know that you got a lot going on and stuff. Is there any sort of future program? Ugh, I'll say it again in English for those in the back. Any future projects that you've sort of you're thinking around about or thinking about now? Because I know you just released Mr. Actually, talk about no. Ignore that question. Let's talk about Mr.
Oh,
Terrific.
okay. Okay.
What was the inspiration for Mr. Terrific and like his awesome ability? It's amazing. All right, I need to. How do I bring it up? How do I bring it? Is he on here anywhere? I don't think he is.
No, he's not on there. I haven't finished his deck yet.
I'm gonna grab his cards from the Discord right now while you're talking and describing it, and
Okay.
I'm gonna put him in. He's gonna come to life.
So I I mean as much as I like the A level, you know, characters in DC, like my love for like the second like the B tier heroes is even more. So like I love Booster Gold.
Mm,
Um,
he's
I
awesome.
love him to death. He is probably one of the best character arcs in any comic book. Like I think out of any character, he goes from, you know, deadbeat janitor, washed up athlete in the future, realizes, hey, I can become a superhero by stealing all this stuff and going to the present day by stealing an almanac, and then going, well, now I can profit off of that with a bunch of sponsorships. So he looks like a NASCAR driver, like stickers and everything
He's
everywhere,
amazing.
and he pals around. He's amazing, but then he has then there's this epiphany that he's actually really important to the DC universe, and he becomes a legitimate hero, but doesn't lose like his kind of like goofiness, right?
Right.
And he's the first hero that like basically tanked a punch from Doomsday. Like he's amazing, and he never gets the credit that he deserves. I think another hero that started in the background but is now becoming more prominent, who I really enjoy, is Mister Terrific. Like he's just awesome. Um, super smart. Batman, goes to his council for wisdom and stuff like that. So he's obviously has a great is easily one of the most powerful characters. But again, he's like kind of in the background and doesn't get enough of his due. And so I just want to make a hero do him justice. And so the idea behind him is he's always thinking, right?
Yeah.
And so with careful planning, he can kind of plan out his turn a little bit better. And so that's what I wanted to capture with his deck is, can I make a hero that cares about playing events or really any card and do that successfully multiple times in a round without giving them any sort of resources is like kind of the goal. And then to do that, you kind of need to do basically like little mini mulligans throughout the time you're drawing because you need to have the right cards for the right thing at the right time. And so that's where his hero ability was born. And then since what he's going to be doing is milling his deck a bunch for drawing cards and then discarding cards, and the rest of his set just kind of came together.
Thank you for that little booster gold intro because it means I could go find the cards. So I've created the and any excuse to mention booster is good. So because he's awesome.
Oh, he's the best.
So here we go. So Mr. Terrific, 311, genius. I love the genius is on his hero side as well as it makes, thank God, and it reflected in his 3 thwart, of course. Creative genius. Here we go. Because this is his old shtick, right? I mean, he's a genius. That's why he does what he does, right? Response. After playing a card paid for with only resources that match the played card's printed resource, draw X cards and then discard X cards from your hand, where X is the cost of that card. Amazing. It's like you've captured the idea, like you were saying before, about like we all play this card game, we all love this card game, and what do you like in card games? You like drawing cards. It's just that weird thing for every card game. Whenever you draw a card, it's like I don't know if there's like a biological reason for it. Do you get like an endorphin hit or something? I don't know what it is, but we all love drawing cards. Any character that draws cards or gives you an effect or whatever. It's probably why Maria Hill's the favorite ally in the game because everybody draws a card. And you've taken that, which everybody loves, and then you've given it such a fascinating spin on the whole, how he then pays for them. Amazing. I can't wait to play this dude. It's going to be awesome. Although I don't think I'm going to play him very well because I'm not that smart. But we'll figure it out. And then, of course, you got his T-spheres. This sort of then ties into it. So you got his events and his stuff, right? I want to mention the events. This is because this is good on its own. But then when it ties into how his events work, this is not an event. But anyway, calculated attacks, right? It's one that I grabbed. So deal 4 damage divided as you choose and want enemies in play, which is great because he's not just punching one dude; he's actually hitting the guy behind him as well. If you have paid for this event, increase the damage dealt by 1 for each card you have drawn this phase. So it ties into the fact that you are drawing cards all the time, and things get better when you've drawn cards. So timing of your event is actually really cool as well. How did you come up with this? It's great. And how soon can we play?
I mean, I may have the deck done tonight. Like at least everything everything up to the obligation. I just want to have a Nemesis set done because I got to pull the art for it.
Yeah.
But no, it was just again, it's like a fun hero in my experience, and seeing what other people like is they're flipping cards, they're turning cards, or they're drawing cards, right? And so I just leaned into one of that like very heavily with him, which is, can you build a deck where you just draw as many cards as you possibly can, which is already good, but for him, it's even better. Because it's now a resource to make his other things more efficient.
Yeah, and it's balanced in that it's you're not just drawing cards is a very powerful aspect of this game, right? The more cards you've got, the more resources, because each card is its own resource, and you need those resources to pay for other cards, right? So you may have a hand of 6, but if you've got a card that costs 4, then you're really you don't really have that many options, right? It's 1 or 2, 3. So action economy, drawing cards, right? And you've balanced it out to make him. If it was just him, just auto mulliganing, just auto drawing cards, it wouldn't be as balanced, right? But you've made it the mulligan aspect of it. You have to make a decision. I'm pumped. And another reason I'm so pumped is I just think Mr. Terrific's awesome. I think he's terrific. In fact, what a waste of a pun.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, I could have done that. I could have done that better. Anyway, cool. All right. So back to the previous question that I just rudely interrupted myself was. So Mr. Terrific's been made. Have you got any other stuff that's sort of percolating in your brain that's sort of like that you want to get out?
So I want to finish up some things. So I want to get Mr. Terrific done. I want to finish the General Zod scenario because it's basically almost done. It just needs some tweaks before I can re-upload it. Cool. I want to get Metamorpho done because, again, that's another character that I enjoy that doesn't get enough due of how powerful he is. I need to fix Swamp Thing because I just want to update him a little bit because I think I can make him better. And then, I got some notes on some new scenarios, and maybe, God help me if I find time to put together a campaign with a bunch of Gotham stuff. that I have lying around. So
Awesome. You're falling into the campaign trap.
Yeah, yeah.
We all try to emulate Gotham's Reckoning, and how well can we really
I
do?
mean, yeah, I'll fall very short of that, but I'm gonna give it my best shot.
That's awesome. I just anybody who does a
It's a high bar.
campaign is I just respect you. Amazing. I mean, Kaj's scroll campaign and it's that sort of stuff. It's just amazing stuff, especially if they're good. It's just I'm in the middle of making my own campaign and bloody hell, it's just mind numbing. Just the amount of detail that has to go into it and stuff. It's just crazy. So yeah, so you're an upcoming Gotham campaign. That's so exciting.
Yeah,
That's really cool. Are you working with anybody on with it, or it's just wholly you?
it's just me right now.
Awesome.
I'm sure if I asked people, they would help, but I think it's just me. That's
Well,
okay.
of course, it's 100%. You just have to ask, and I'll be there. It's anything you want me to do.
I'm already stealing some of your ideas. I told you I'm stealing them.
Oh,
So I
that's
just
the
have
one.
to
Is that so? The
start.
Gotham campaign
Yeah.
is what you're stealing. I just need to point this out. I've gotten quite a bit of like for one of my scenarios, and of course it's flattering. So one of my scenarios is people seem to sort of appreciate it, and it's great. I just need to put it out there. Full disclosure, it's not entirely my idea. I actually ripped the idea off from Lord of the Rings and just implemented it into Marvel Champions. So it's just an altered version of a Lord of the Rings. And I find it quite interesting that the one that I get the most praise for is the one that I had the least amount of input on. But that being said, that's the one that you're going to use in the Gotham campaign, right? So
Yeah.
that's so cool.
It doesn't matter where genius comes from. I mean, we all borrow ideas from everybody else. You were just smart enough to borrow it from a different card game. I mean, like you should take the credit where credit's due. Just
I'll,
because
I,
you
I'll,
just because it didn't come to the ether from you, but you realized, hey, this thing over here that's somewhat tangentially related to this game, we can repurpose into something here. I mean, that's smart.
don't get me wrong. I'm glad that people enjoy it, but
Yeah.
I just wanted full disclosure out there. But at least all right. I'll praise myself. At least I had the idea of picking one of the good ones to rip off. There you go, done.
There it is.
And yeah, so
Yep.
seeing it then to see it re-implemented in your thing is going to be awesome. So you got that Gotham campaign there as well. And also I've spoken to Beretta, of course, and we talked about the Metropolis campaign that's coming. That you're a part of, which is awesome. Which is another reason why you have to look at Zod, right? Because it'll be in that as well.
Yeah.
So there's another one that you're as part of as well. It's just you're a busy dude. I know you're busy in real life, busy in like the creating as well as, but thank God that you do. Your stuff is awesome. All right, so I know you've mentioned quite a few sort of creators throughout the conversation. Is there any sort of creations that sort of stand out for you that have sort of inspired you?
Um, so I really like theme wise. So we'll kind of go theme wise, and then like mechanics wise, I guess is probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
Um, like I really like theme wise, Hainsey's nightmare scenario,
Awesome.
just because I think it is a really neat twist on things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I have to be honest because a lot of these I never actually played. It's more like I looked at the cards, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, way to go, that's really awesome.
Cool.
Um, I think Design Hackers, Doctor Doom, and Mole Man both fit in that very well as well.
Yeah.
And those have really cool mechanics to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm going to approach him to kind of bogart one of them for something that I want to work on too.
Bogart. Is that another way of saying steal the idea?
Basically, yeah.
I've never heard that before. I've learned something.
Oh, yeah.
Bogart. All right, I
There you go.
bogarted that Lord of the Rings quest.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. I liked the kind of the haunted house Star Wars thing, despite the fact that it was Star Wars.
Despite the fact that it was Star Wars.
Yeah.
That is so. Just for the listeners, that's a bit of an in joke because AS and I have discussed this previously. His dislike for the Star Wars universe and my horror at that at that statement. Yeah, I'm glad.
Fair,
I'm glad you
I
brought
like
that
the
up.
universe. I just don't like the movies.
Okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you did go rebuy all those RPGs, the RPG books. That's. I'm glad. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's actually my favorite scenario that I've made. I actually think it's the one that works the best. So,
Um, and I think that's really slick.
cool.
You know, uh, I mentioned Nuggets. Fin Fang Foom, I think, is probably the most brilliant one.
It's so cool.
Either made by FFG or made in the custom crew. It's so smart and so it's just very well done.
Yep.
Um, if I'm thinking of, I mean, those are probably the scenarios that come to mind. And then
Mm.
as far as like heroes go, um, I really like, um, design hackers. Like, there's a spectrum, right? So,
Yeah.
I like Odie. So it's like I kind of say like on one hand is Odie, and the other side's like design hacker, and then everybody kind of falls in the middle somewhere, right?
Gotcha.
Um, like Odie is, I want to say brutal simplicity, but the ability to capture theme is amazing.
Yep.
Like his name more set is just so smart.
Yep.
Um, doing what it needs to do. And
Mm.
I believe the deep mechanic is just repurposed from another game anyway. So like I said, just because it was made somewhere else doesn't mean you shouldn't take credit for porting it over, right?
Oh, there you go.
Um,
Yep.
I think it's from a different game, if I remember correctly. I think the counting cards from somewhere is in something. I could be completely wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I apologize, Odie, if you listen to this. You came up with a brilliant idea yourself.
It's a
Um,
cool mechanic either way. Let's just say.
well, it's a cool, but yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
mechanic. It captures them very well. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and then on the other hand, you have Design Hacker, who not only finds very niche characters to make people happy that love these niche characters, but then finds sometimes just absolute you know clockwork madness to make them work,
Mm.
and then they work right
Yeah.
is just so cool.
The fact that they then work,
You know,
so they're so far
and then
out
they
of the
work.
box,
Yeah.
and then they work, and it's like, oh my god.
Yep. But then I think. I mean, I think everybody has a character that they do really well on, but I think a lot of those are the ones that got the most feedback to then, just really hum, right? Like
Mm.
your Mary Marvel is an exceptional hero, but it took a lot of feedback to get there, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing, with like Captain Scorp's Taskmaster is brilliant,
Yep.
but it took a lot of feedback to get him there.
Right.
You know, similarly with like Blue HG's Eternals, like that's again like a very crazy set, but it works, and the reason why it works is because it got good feedback. I mean, that's just how this community works. It's not like, I think if anybody takes anything away from this, I don't think anybody wakes up one morning and says, "I'm going to make a set," and then that set is 100% perfect from that moment that it was made, right?
Right.
Like I think it's really about trial and error and the great community that's willing to put in the time and effort to give really good feedback to make these things the way they are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah, you're spot on. It's the beauty of this community is the feedback, is the everybody's willing, everybody's got an opinion, and it's the creations wouldn't be where they were today without that feedback, right? Without that play testing, without the and also the enthusiasm that the community gives you. Is like they want you to succeed. Nobody's in here to
Yeah.
to slack down other people. And if they are, they're very quickly taken care of. But I've never seen it, and it's just it's all about the building you up and the best that you can be and stuff. And Mary Marvel, you're totally right. She's my favorite creation I've ever made, and she only exists in the form that she has because of feedback like yourself, and of course Kami, and yeah, and my willingness to grow. So she only exists in the way she does because of that. For people like yourself, and you've helped. I mean, you've helped. Your fingerprints are on every single thing I've done. Whether it's because you've actually given me verbal advice, or because I'm just thinking of you, and it's just what I'm going back into the fanboy stuff. I'm sorry, but I really sort of. So you mentioned the Odie sort of design philosophy type thing, and I agree. It's when we were having our chat and he talked about his like design philosophy and stuff, and I was just like, that is just so brilliant. I mean, just keep it simple and just make sure everything ties into it. It sounds like a no-brainer, right? It just sounds like, well, of course that's what you should do, right? But very rarely does that sort of happen unless you actually really consciously think about it, because everybody loves the hero and they want it to be overpowered. They want it to be awesome. Like, I mean, if you're making a Spidey character hero and he's your favorite hero, which he should be because he's the greatest, then Of course, you want him to kick ass, but then following the sort of the Odie thing, and whereas I've actually, and as great as that philosophy is, I've actually learned more from you because your a willingness to sort of to help, but also just how simple your ideas are, and your suggestions. Like your suggestions always make sense. And there's even been times where I've actually disagreed with your suggestion, but then then more often than not, I sort of come back to it, and I'm like, I've got to get my head out of my ass. Like this is, I mean, this is so obviously true. What he said is obviously the way it should be, and sort of like so I go from there and stuff. And so I follow the philosophy, and I apologize in advance if this embarrasses you. But what would ES do? So it's what should I do? The sort of what should I do to make this better is go have a look at some ES stuff and sort of follow that, tying everything back, because like I said at the start, that is your genius, is theme, but then also making sure everything makes sense based on the central premise. And it's been invaluable to me, and to from what I'm hearing everybody else that you interact with.
But I didn't start that way. I mean, let's just be very clear. Like, my very first year was Magneto, and he was a hot mess with all the different things he was trying to do.
Right.
I'll be completely honest. And then the
Yeah.
next one I made was Citizen V, because I love Citizen V and I love Thunderbolts.
Cool.
And he was an even more hot mess than Magneto was. I
Really,
mean,
your second one was worse than your first one.
yeah. Oh yeah. You know, I mean, I I failed way more times at making successful heroes than I've been successful.
Right.
Um, just try to learn a little bit more along the way, and I've just been very fortunate that people have given me honest feedback. And I think that's the other thing is, I don't, and I think you mentioned this. Nobody, at least to my knowledge, comes with giving feedback from a bad place.
Mm.
Right? They may not be the most tactful in giving feedback, but that's a personality quirk, right?
There's
And
definitely
so,
personalities for sure.
yeah, and so I think, being part of this community, you have to realize one is everybody's trying to help each other, just like you said.
Yeah.
And two, you don't have to agree with what everyone says.
Yes.
It's your creation at the end of the day. You do what you want, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that have been doing this a long time or have played a bunch, and their opinions are very valid for saying this is how this works given what FFG has done. And so if you're trying to make your stuff to be more aligned with what is official, then I think you should start like opening yourself to those opinions, right? And if you don't, you don't, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's the beauty of this, right? Like, we're not getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do
For the
with
love
it,
of the
right?
game, right? It's yeah.
Yeah. Um, you know, but I think acknowledging that the people here are here to help and are willing to help only makes the stuff that we make better.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I'm glad you touched on the personality thing. It's just there's all feedback is helpful, but sometimes it can be maybe coached a little nicer. We'll see how it goes. Sometimes the written text is a little bit more blunt than sort of like conversations and stuff. But it all comes from a good place. And you're only going to get better by practice, and sort of evolving like your style and your ideas and all that sort of stuff. And like you said, that's perfectly said. It's, at the end of the day, just do whatever you want. just, just do whatever you want. If you want to have art from different decades, then by all means go for it. Because I know I will. Just do whatever you feel happy with and stuff. As long as it works for you.
I mean, I will say that you have a higher chance of getting your stuff played if it looks nice.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate that when I first started in this game, like
Yeah.
making stuff. Like I was like, who cares? Like, who cares if my art's not perfect? Who cares? Whatever. It's the game, right? And that's not the case because
No.
it's a visual game, right? It's
Yes.
immersive. It's like kind of what I mentioned at the beginning, right? It's about immersion and theme. And so if you're sacrificing the look of the card, then nobody's going to play your stuff. I mean, I hate being bluntly honest, but it's just how it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you want to get feedback, you need people to play your stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, on the one hand, Hitch has done just an amazing job of making the templates look as official as you can possibly get, right?
Yep.
And then you have the very, very talented people that can do magic with Photoshop, so that we can find that one piece of art for that one card that we need to make it look perfect.
Yep.
And there's no reason not to try to make your cards look as good as possible. I
Yeah.
mean, the best person to do that is Blue HG, without a doubt. Hands down, makes the most gorgeous sets in the entire forum consistently.
Yeah. They are beautiful. I guess.
Yep.
I guess I was more leaning towards the. I mean, of course, yes. I mean, it's a visual game, right? So you may want them to look pretty. I guess I was leaning more into the. How do you define which art? I mean, it's quite common
Yeah.
is that you use art from the same run, right? Like where to sort of make it sort of keep it consistency. I think is the word I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make it look consistent, and that definitely helps to like visually help. And yeah, I mean whether you like it or not, it is a visual experience, right? And so if the card looks bad, that's just going to affect people. And I don't mean just in terms of like colors schemes and stuff. It's you want it to look pretty there on the table while you're looking at it. Instead, I mean, it just goes without saying, right? Awesome. It's just there's so much we could talk about. It was my worry going into this was that we would just be talking for like hours, right? Because we talked for a fair bit before I even started pressed record. It's just there's just so much I want to talk about. Is there anything that I haven't touched on yet? I'm not saying that I'm done. I can still go. But is there anything I haven't touched on yet that you wanted to bring up?
No. I mean, I wanted to make sure that as we went through this, like, this isn't like an ES only thing. Like, I wouldn't have gotten this. I mean, the table that you see here isn't. I did not code this by hand. I mean, it's a community effort. Like, Beretta made the villain mat, and I believe the side scheme mat. I think Big Bobber made the original
Playmat.
but it was in this weird orangey. Or no, I think it was full colored. And then somebody said, it'd be really nice if it was grayscaled. So I did that. But I mean, he put the art and all the stuff there.
That was me.
You were the one who told me that the colors look bad. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. I was like, "There's too much going on. Can we make it grayscale?"
Yeah.
Cool. I've contributed to the table, people. I'm famous.
Oh yeah, you did. I think the only thing on the table besides the reskins that I did is I made the lantern thing, and that's because I found somebody who had like a 3D sculpty thing.
You actually credited it on the table, which I think is awesome. License under Creative Commons Attribution. That's awesome.
Yep.
You're obviously you're a fan of the legality. It's like let's make sure credit is where credit is due.
Yeah, give credit where credit's due. Yeah. I mean, that's how it works, right?
Yeah, that is how it works. Yeah. And that's what you do. I just, it's what you do is you just did it again. You can't help yourself. It's just like I just want to point out that this table is like a collaborative effort. It's like there's a lot of creative people involved and stuff like that. It's amazing. It's just you're always paying it forward.
It's true. I'll take the credits for the things that I did, but I want to make sure the other people who did stuff get their credit too.
Yeah,
I think that's only fair.
I love it. So other than that, is there proper accreditation? There's nothing that I missed that you want to talk about?
No, I think I'm happy to answer any other questions you have, but I don't think there's anything that comes to mind.
Okay, cool. Okay, what I really want to focus on in season 2 is more sort of going into the sort of the deep dive about the creative process and stuff, like from go to woe when you make something. Like you mentioned a couple of times when we were talking about your heroes, how like there was different versions and stuff. So we sort of touched on that a bit with like Batman, for example, and stuff, right? So could we grab one of your creations and really deep dive into it? Like, why did you do what you did? How did you actually start? Well, the original, the first idea, and then sort of how did you then tweak it as you went along? So like the creative journey.
Sure, I'll pick an easy one because some of them went through so many iterations that what you're seeing right now isn't like where it started. So I'll like pick Aquaman because Aquaman hasn't changed much. The core Aquaman hasn't changed much. So Um, so like Aquaman was meant to be like kind of a get like I don't know how many people watch like the Super Friends. Like
Everybody
Super
who
Friends are
who
hysterical.
knows what they're talking about watch the Super
Yeah.
Friends.
And
Love
so
it.
like the running gag of the Super Friends, or if you read like I think his name was Sean Baby, who did like the really weird knockoff Super Friends, like kind of posting stuff. I don't know. It was hysterical. But like the running joke of Aquaman was all he can do is talk to fish, right?
Mm.
Um, and can't really do much else, which is not true. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of lean into that. And so with Aquaman, I wanted to make a character who needed to use supports to function well, like him talking to fish, but I just made the fish much more um, interesting. Um, and kind of blend them in with his kit a little bit more, right?
Mm.
Um, and so from the get go, it was well, let's get some big scary sea monsters, which are fun. Who doesn't love big scary sea monsters?
Yep.
And somehow integrate them into his set so that he could kind of help him along the way. And so that was basically the core mechanic. It's big sea monsters, and then make things work off of that. But the hard part there was well, if he's using them every round, they can't be that good, which is not ideal.
No.
Um,
When you've got a megalodon, you
but
want it
then
to be
if they're
good.
yeah, you wanted to feel like have impact, right? And you
Yeah.
wanted to have them be like slightly different, but you also didn't want to be hamstrung if you never got them out, right?
Mm.
Like it's the whole thing. Like so, Iron Man only gets better as he gets equipment out. Aquaman gets better as he gets his sea monsters out.
Mm.
Um, and so that's where I put the exhaustion kind of like counter or clock on them, which is just you know they can't ready if they're tired, which is basically them just being underwater or however you want to think about it. And so his shtick is how do you remove those counters fast enough, or how do you choose who gets what counter and when to be most efficient, right? So his deck doesn't integrate well with aspect cards, unlike some of the other stuff I do. His is more like Hawkeye, because like Hawkeye basically functions like Hawkeye no matter what deck you put him in, because his arrow cards don't really interact much with deck building.
Yep.
Aquaman only limited does because it's just can I kill stuff faster, or can I get rid of schemes faster to get counters off quicker, but otherwise he's pretty self-contained.
Right. Okay. And why that sort of as you wanted to lean into the fish stuff? Why didn't you just give
Yeah.
him a whole bunch of fish minions, allies?
Because allies are broken in this game. So
Okay.
I mean, we played a couple games together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but I barely have more than maybe 2 or 3 allies in my deck beyond the signature one.
When you played
Just
Jason, I
because,
don't think he's even had a single one.
except for a signature one, I think
Yeah.
maybe I have one other one just because it is like a blocker, right? And I think that's just me because it's like, well, I want the hero to shine, not like the hero and a bunch of his friends, where his friends is doing all the heavy lifting. It just doesn't work for me in this game.
Yep.
Um, and so since allies are very, very potent, I didn't want to make them allies. So I figured making them supports worked.
Hmm.
But then damaging supports really don't exist, which is why I wanted to put like the counter on them, so it's not like you're damaging them every turn, right? There's like a little bit of tension there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. That fascinates me what you just said. So allies as a concept are broken.
I don't think they're just too good for their cost.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, barring certain situations, they can come on the board, they can do some things. They generally have a ability on them, and then on top of that, they can take a hit too, right? And some
Hmm.
of them can take multiple hits, and your hero's fine.
Yeah.
And that's a lot for the same cost of maybe doing 6 damage, right?
Okay.
Like a 3 cost ally, you know, will come on the board, probably take away maybe 2 threat or do 2 or 3 points of damage, have some other ancillary ability, and then still have enough hit points to either do it again next round or take a hit for you from a minion so you don't take it, or maybe take the full hit from a villain and all the rest of that stuff, right?
Hmm.
It's just a lot in the same cost as like events and whatnot. And the event, you only get to do something once, and sometimes that stuff's wasted. It's like I have a 6 damage ability, and I have a minion that I have to take out that only takes 4 damage. Well, now I've wasted 2, right? But
Hmm.
with an ally, because their stats are where they are, like you're never really wasting stuff
Right.
much.
Okay. So let's go sort of back into the sort of the design sort of aspect. So ask Aquaman. How many versions of Aquaman were there before you got to this final
Probably 3 or 4.
3 or 4? And is that pretty standard for you?
Oh no, that's very low. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're thinking like tinkering, so I think like Superman literally went through 4 massive overhauls plus some intermediate stuff. Batman's the same. The Flash was the same. Wonder Woman the same. I think the one that came together the quickest was probably Green Arrow,
Yep.
and he may just had a couple cards changed. Like otherwise, he was where he was the entire time.
That's cool.
Um, so
That's awesome. I just did a spotlight with Craig, one of the newer members of our community, and that Green Arrow is his favorite custom.
oh, that's awesome.
That is awesome. All right. So my next question: Do you? I've heard from a couple of creators where their idea is that they sort of like they're struggling for an idea, but then they find like a certain piece of art, and that sort of helps inspire the idea. Does that ever happen for you?
No, because art finding is always the most cumbersome part for me. Because like I have like a subscription to Marvel and a subscription. I should probably get rid of the subscription to Marvel because I don't even make Marvel stuff anymore. But I have both Marvel and DC subscriptions,
Hmm.
and so I just troll through the comic books like crazy, and I get I just take screen clipping after screen clipping of just pages and pages and pages of comics to find the right art. Basically, I have everything written in an Excel spreadsheet before I start doing anything for the most part,
Cool.
and it's just like assembling the cards after that.
Okay, cool. So everything's in a document, and then you just go from there.
Yeah.
So you work out the mechanics, like you fine tune the mechanics first in the document, and then you make the cards.
Yep.
Cool. So something like that. So Father's Sea Blessing. You had the idea for the title, you had the idea for the ability, and then you had to go find a picture that sort of resembles the idea.
It was more I didn't have the title. I had what I wanted to do, and then I was like, oh well, this artwork will work for this thing. So it's like so what I'll have is like attack event, do this. Thwart event, do this, and then I'll try to find art and a title that then works together with it.
Okay, so yeah, so it is a bit of an amalgamation. So you have the mechanics is all set out. This is exactly what I
Yep.
wanted to do, and then you're inspired. So like with the piranhas, armed to the teeth. Wasn't necessarily always called armed to the teeth. He just found the picture of all the piranhas. And was like, yep, that's it. That's the done.
Correct. Yep.
Cool, awesome. That's very cool. I love that. It's hearing how you guys sort of like do what you do. I mean, because obviously I have my own sort of methods. It's like how you guys so it's the design document and sort of from there you go and stuff. That's very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that. Um,
Oh yeah.
I I've had a bit of an epiphany. I'm basically just
Okay.
making up stuff to sort of to ask you to keep the conversation going. And I'm just
Yeah.
and I just I realize we could be here all day. So I think I'm going to call it there. It was just again before I go. Is there anything that you want to bring up before we finish it off? I think we're going to finish it off here.
Oh, okay. I think the only thing I want to leave with is just my appreciation for all the people that helped not only make the board, but just make my stuff better. Um, you know, I think we all make this stuff with the intent of being played, right? I mean, we get a positive feelings out of seeing and hearing our stuff getting played, right? And so my deepest appreciation for everybody doing that, and then I think my deepest appreciation for you, like it's awesome that we're friends now. It's fantastic. And you bringing more people to the game, I think just makes everything better for the community. And so I think, if anybody should be thanked for bringing the community together, it's you. If I'm being honest.
Wow. You didn't have to say that. So I really appreciate that. I'm glad the check cleared. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. That's blown me away. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm gonna have to call it here because I'm getting emotional. Thank you again for all that you do, and I
Yeah.
too am glad that I've made a friend and that it's you, um, and for all that you do. It's just amazing. I mean, there's a reason why you get mentioned all the time, and you've just proven it again. So, having you as the final episode, the finale, the grand finale of season one, I think is just perfect. It's just worked out very, very well. And I couldn't think of anyone better. I really, I kept saying why I created this series. It was, to bring new people, to inspire new people to join, and also to get to know all of you creators and stuff like that. But the thing is, and it's worked. It's been an absolute pleasure to actually to meet all the people to meet the people in our community and get to know them better, and just learn new things, and make new friends and stuff, which is great. But we were already friends, so I knew
Yeah.
that when we were getting to you, it was really basically just going to be just an excuse just to talk to you, because we don't talk that often, because you're a very, very busy man, and so this was just really an excuse for just two friends to have a chat.
Yep.
So thank you for that. It was great.
That's fantastic.
It's just yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please watch. Well, obviously you're watching on YouTube. There's no other place to watch. I don't know why I keep saying that. I've said it every episode so far. It's crazy. Of course you watch it on YouTube. You're not just hacking into my computer. Anyway, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment. Introduce yourself. Say hello to ES. I'm sure he'd love it. And there'll be a link to his work, his massive body of work, and the DC table for TTS. If you have any inclination of wanting to try some custom stuff, jump on. The community wouldn't be here without him. So jump on, check it all out, check out his stuff. He actually has another TTS mod that has like some other stuff on there as well, so I'll have a link to that as well. But it also will have an invite to the Discord. Take advantage of it. Even if you just want to just sort of come in and sort of lurk for a bit, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I lurked for a bit. I built up the courage to like to do some stuff. So by all means, go for it. Jump on and check out the community and all the awesome people that are on it, and the things that they do and how they interact. And even if you want to just jump on and just have a game with some people, people do that. People come in and just have games with some of the creators on here and stuff. So it's take advantage of it, and join the community that we all love. It's awesome stuff. Yes, thank you again. I'm getting emotional. I'm going to finish it up. It's just, thank you again for everything that you do. This is awesome, and that's it. That's season one. That's a wrap, folks. I'll be starting season two soon. Little bit of a break, and then into season two, and we'll get some more people on here. So some of the people that I missed for whatever reason, people scheduling and all that sort of stuff. Different time zones is a pain in the butt. I got to tell you, it's bad.
Yep.
So trying to get people's schedules, and I just want to just thank everybody who took part in season one. Thank you very much for your time and your graciousness and the wisdom that you have imparted. So to everybody in season one, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. ES, thank you just for existing. As always, if you please look after yourself, look after your own self, and also look after the people that you love, and tell them that you love them as often as you can. That's more important than anything. Take care. Goodbye.